Can I just address you?
How'd you like being tied up, Dick?
It's rather alarming, really.
Thank you. Not switched on yet.
No, 5 seconds.
Does it sound different when we are switched on? Do we sound different to ourselves?
Yeah. Just try it out. Say hip hip hooray. No.
Good. How does this sound? All right?
This is going to be rather an informal sort of meeting. Ordinarily, it's the job of this meeting to put whoever is on the platform in the picture, feedback about the groups. But there hasn't been anything yet, so we have to put you in the picture a little bit. But before we begin, I want to start thanking everybody for this marvelous golden wedding present. It's especially nice to be able to do this because we have here this afternoon our chief bridesmaid, Joan Murray, now Lady Clewett, and one of our ushers, Arthur Connell. And Jane Clewett will probably remember that we were being married by the headmaster of my prep school, of whom I was terribly frightened still. And we hadn't a very good best man, and he pushed the ring into my hand at the wrong moment. And the headmaster, in a stentorian whisper, said, "Put that ring down." And the bridesmaid gave an audible titter. Anyway, here is this lovely golden present to which you all contributed. And we'll show it, of course, at the big meeting on Monday. But I thought this would be a good opportunity for you to inspect it more closely. And so Claude Geoffroy will show it you afterwards, because you'll be quite sure nobody will pinch it. He's written about how it was made, which is really quite something, and any goldsmith, I'm sure, would be very instructed by that. Made everything himself, all the hinges and everything. And they scraped up at the goldsmith's company several baskets full of fragments. And then the Royal College managed to produce the mirror writing. How did you do that? How did you do that?
Just like that.
Then in addition, we got a golden Russian ruble from the time of Catherine the Great, from one of the Galitzin family who'd smuggled it out of Russia. And we had a marvelous party from our family and all sorts of things we haven't recovered yet. But I'd like to congratulate my wife on so well getting through her 50 years of hard labor. Now, about the present situation. Lord Aaron is in New York for this week at a very opportune moment, because the New York group have been going through rather sticky time. Mr. Ravenek has been keeping very much to himself. He's getting pretty old now. And however, when Alan telephoned the Hagers, that set Ravenek into action, and he was supposed to have lined everything up for Alan yesterday, got him to see the group, and he is dining every night with the Hagers so that he can see as many people as possible. And this is just what they need at the moment to get a boost. Then, this is a very important month for us, for various reasons which you'll be hearing about. But it culminates with a visit which may well be the last one that my wife and I make to the Shankaracharya. We fly out on the 21st of October with Lord and Lady Aaron, and therefore it will be our professor who will be in charge of these Monday meetings while we're away, 2 of them you have, with anybody he likes to co-opt to help. That's always supposing there isn't a revolution at the college.
Well, I hope there is.
Sean Crampton asked to be excused because they have moved rather far out from being part of this small group of 20 administrators who do all the hard labor with Alan and the chair, meet once a month. The question, who should be his substitute at that group, who with Gart and Skillman will do all the arrangements about groups, which is fairly complicated. And everybody seems to agree that they would like Anne Garton. Is she here? We all want you. And I suppose it's partly because you've got such a good, clear mind, and partly because you have all this experience, and are incidentally in touch with your brother-in-law in Mexico, and so on. So anyhow, will you very kindly consent and default to previous notice? Now, if there's three, are the reference body, we want a closer liaison between people who take the groups and there's three. Instead of the office having to deal with so many things and that as well. So they should be consulted about any problems about the organization of a group. And they're going to be working out just where we're going to have groups. But there have to be changes, of course. To begin with, there's a very wide area where people are very scattered in the west and southwest, from Tony Brignall, who I see here, who's able to come to Monday meetings, but has a very busy life, up in Buckinghamshire, through Berkshire, Wiltshire, where the Melvilles are, and others, Hampshire, Surrey, Middlesex, and Kent. We've got great potential there. a number of people who are perfectly capable of taking a group. It's a question of trying to save hours of travel and wear and tear and get a right use of our potential. It takes in Selborne, to which the Hesse family have now moved, John Hesse. So you've got the data from Helen about where these different people are, and you and Stillman and Garton be able to work something out, perhaps. But before we can decide how we're going to take advantage of the Richardsons' hospitality in Chertsey, for instance, what kind of a group and who's going to take it there, we need to take it in a bigger context. That kind of problem. Have you, any of you, any views about any of this? It might mean, one suggestion is that those people might have a monthly meditation meeting and not have to travel necessarily here. I don't know. It needs working out what people want. And of course, there are the people all up the eastern side of England, Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, Yorkshire, Northumberland, and some people in the West Midlands. So we want to have a connection, a liaison, so that everybody can feel they belong, but don't necessarily have to rush across country to a meeting. Any views on this?
Do you think it's a good idea to go back more to the divisions that used to be?
Well, that's a suggestion, that we go back to regional organization. It's a bit difficult to fit them into north, south, east, and west. That's the trouble. No. I don't know if you've had any views, Sean. There are a lot of people down around you, and we don't feel that they need to dash to London or dash somewhere else. They've got it with them.
Yes, there's a very good potential group around our area. About what abilities?
Anything else about organization? I think you better read these notes.
Well, the turning practices start tomorrow, with the first macabre this Friday. That's the 30th September. And there'll be a macabre for guests on the 7th of October. There'll be a large Monday meeting next week, the 3rd of October. No Monday meeting on the following week.
That's when they'll be working things out about groups, etc.
But a meditation meeting on the Tuesday the 11th. Then on Monday the 17th, there's a large Monday meeting. And the next two will be small ones. That's the 24th and the 31st. That's while Dr. Rose is in India.
We'll be away, you see, from the 21st for a full fortnight. And we'll be back for this meditation meeting on Tuesday the 8th, because there won't be a meeting on November the 7th. So our first meeting with you on return from India will be at that meditation meeting on Tuesday the 8th of November. Then if you can think that far ahead, I can't myself, but there was supposed to be a small meeting on the 14th of November, a large one on the 21st, small on the 28th, and finally, our last meeting of the term, a large one on Monday, the 5th of December.
Isn't going to be an organising meeting on the 7th of November? Could you and Lord Allen are away?
Yes, that's under debate. But when I say there's no meeting, I mean there's no meeting in this room. The 20 people will have to be working things out and will have to be meeting accordingly, you see. You've asked me to do the initiations on the 9th of October. And Alan will look after anybody that remains from that on the Wednesday following. And they will have been seen and had a talk with Alan Cager Smith before all that.
Yes, they've all been, lot of them been seen this week.
Yeah. Any questions so far? The dates will be put up.
No interruption to the movements from the 3rd onwards.
There's no interruption to the movements from the 3rd on.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. We were waiting to know if you were definitely going to be there. We very much want. Because there are 10 or 11 people, very good people, wanting to start. And we think next Monday is too soon, so they'll be starting Monday after, whereas the existing classes will start this coming Monday, after the big meeting. Anything else organizational?
Are we continuing the same arrangement about work parties with volunteers from the other groups for a week or 2 each?
Are we continuing the same system of work parties with volunteers from the groups coming forward?
What do people think? I felt that it works much better this way than it's ever worked before. Would you all like to continue that way? How many volunteers from?
I think we had 2 from each group, as far as was humanly possible.
2 from each group.
Yes. Skillman, what do you think about that? Do you think it should go on?
It seemed to work very well on the road as far as up to now. I think it could go on a bit longer.
And they're going to continue on Tuesday and Thursday, the meetings, the work parties. By the way, thank you very much indeed for painting my room so nicely. It really is beautiful. And I try not to splodge the walls.
They're washable.
They're washable.
But then we're coming gradually towards the rather crucial question: what are we going to meet about? What are we going to talk about? I was very thrilled to read the tape account of the meditation meeting, which Alan and Cager Smith took on the 13th of September. Most uncanny, the way they seemed to agree with the line of thought I was developing. So I started reading one by quoting from the beginning of that meeting, where Alan Having been asked this question, what is the real meaning of self-realization? It develops the idea that realization in its simplest form is the product of knowledge and experience. And there was a most interesting discussion. The report of the meeting is now in circulation. And it can open up a new field of material which has come our way since we last met, but which I want to approach rather gradually. I want you first to have the next number of our magazine, The Bridge, in which this new material is led up to, and which we're promised by the printers around the 7th of October. I want to wait till you've had time to look at that before going into this new material more closely. But coming back to realization being the product of knowledge and experience, not all knowledge. What knowledge? It's very important that the new people joining us and the people who've been coming to new groups in the last 6 months or so should be given just that amount of knowledge which is needed for self-realization. And it's equally important that all the people that have been attending groups here since we got this house and before should be able to discard such knowledge as is now superfluous. So the chief knowledge must be very simple. One way of putting it is that each of us is the kind of link between the body and its machinery and the mind and its machinery, which is like our car. They're what we got to get through life with, and differentiate that from the conscious being, the driver of the car, which inhabits or controls this machinery. And our psychology, you and me, has to form this link, relate the workings of the machine to the consciousness, and carry out, listen to the instructions of this consciousness and carry them out. And I don't think we're doing anything like enough of that, really, to qualify as teachers at all. There are too many accidents happen from involuntary movements. People keep falling and breaking things, and we're not showing that this consciousness working through meditation, turning, movements, all the things we do, is having a sufficient effect on our behavior. So I think we've all got to buckle to and make a very, very strong and firm resolution to try and do something about this machinery every day. Fidelity to our ideals, consistency between our beliefs, our thinking, and our action. So there's plenty to do from day to day, and progress is made by small effort every day. Any questions now about this?
Doctor, I find that old age is a great help to your attention because it's really imposed on one here. But instead of being negative about it, it's really a great help in his work. Because one has to be more aware of one's thoughts and actions and ways of action.
Mrs. Simpson says she finds old age a great help in this question of attention.
Yes, it's very nice, isn't it, Mrs. Simpson? But you can't expect everybody to get old all at once. There's something everybody ought to be doing, whatever their age, whatever their circumstances of life, whatever the kind of life they lead. Do their own job, and all that we get is to make them able to do their own job more effectively and more in line with the spirit and energy of truth. But certainly, there's nothing to dread about old age, and absolutely nothing to fear about death. But as Shankaracharya says, one's got not only to be living our journey through this life as effectively and productively as possible, but one's got to be putting something by and preparing for that other journey which we undertake at death. And in that he agrees with Mr. Ouspensky completely. Because what we believe deep down happens to us at death ultimately determines how we lead our lives. If we are convinced that we came from nothing and end in nothing, in annihilation, what is there to live for? What ideals? We eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. And the evidence that I mentioned to you is recent evidence in modern terms about the certainty of continued existence. That this life is only a section of a whole cycle of changes. Anyway, we don't have to think about speculations about the afterlife or anything like that. Self-remembering is a practical thing, and I've put in this paper something said about the question which arose at this meditation meeting. What is the relation between self-realization and that other idea, self-remembering? So I think this will be of interest to you.
In the
more relevant knowledge and experience.
In your reference to self-realization, you referred to experience and knowledge. What could we do to acquire more in this direction?
Shankaracharya says self-realization is a misnomer, just for our youth to go along with. The self is already realized, just as the sun is realized. It's there, it's perfect already. So the knowledge we need is to know for certain that this self is there all the time and knows everything about it. And that the whole of life is simply to acquire the art of taking the self as guidance, understanding what it says and carrying it out. That's really, in brief, what's needed. And there's no general expression or universal teaching, universal definition. It's up to each individual through experience, as Alan said, to experience the self, understand it, and carry out what it says. So that's why it's not easy to talk about. There's no language to talk about between people. All one can do is to put the general direction about knowing about the car and knowing about the conscious being who inhabits and should be directing this car. And it has to be got by individual experience because it's different in everybody's case. It's very interesting. There were two, have always been in the history of humanity, two fundamentally different points of view about human birth and death. One is this one, that we come from nowhere and end in annihilation, and that nothing exists beyond the physical body. And there's the other one, which has cropped up among wise men in almost every age and country, but which was started in Europe by the Greeks at about the time of the first Shankaracharya. I think not just coincidence, but 25 centuries ago, a philosophy started among the Greeks in Asia Minor and Greece and Sicily, which said that this idea of the physical body being everything and no continued existence once it dies doesn't explain the facts if you look closely into human life. And Plato it was who expressed this in at least 5 dialogues. The view that the soul inhabits the body temporally, but has come from far and has much knowledge and experience and will go back to where it came from, which is a far higher state. The ordinary view is that we arise from unconsciousness, are conscious during life, and go into revert to unconsciousness again. For Plato, the soul was conscious before birth, enters a far lower state of consciousness and keeps forgetting all it knew before. And the moment of death is awakening, an awakening and a return to greater consciousness again. Hence the idea of self-remembering, which is to remember the consciousness with which you started and to which you will return. That is the relation between self-realization and self-remembering, one way of putting it. It wasn't only Mr. Ouspensky who taught us about self-remembering. The thing that first convinced me that the Shankaracharya and his tradition were what Mr. Ouspensky had sent us out to look for was my first sight of the Shankaracharya, who evidently remembers himself all the time, the first person I ever knew to do that, and secondly, that he was the only other person to talk about self-remembering, which he did at one of the earliest talks I heard him give, with the Maharishi translating. The whole trouble, he says, our whole trouble is that we never remember ourselves. But we can't begin then with that because it's too complicated to explain. But he gave that well-known story, you know, which is meant to be taken rather light-hearted then. 10 men, he said, were swimming across the Ganges at this point where we are now sitting. And because of the crocodiles, they got very nervous. And so when they got to the other side, they started counting heads. And they all counted heads, and they always made it 9. And a realized man happened to be walking by and said, "What's your trouble?" And they explained. And he said, "Well, nobody ever counts himself." So he took them in turn and hit the first man 1 blow on the head with his stick, and the next man 2 blows, and the next man 3 blows, and the last, the 10th man, remembered all the rest of his life because he got 10. So it's not just Mr. Ouspensky, but it's inherent in that ancient tradition, and on every page of the Gospels, incidentally, if we could understand. It's true about any true teaching about human life. Well, there we are. We've got up into the clouds again. Sorry. But it starts with remembering where we put our feet and what comes out of our mouth from moment to moment, and discarding everything that's past and everything that might be going to happen in the future, and just now. How awake am I at this moment?
Dr. Rose, I find that trying to be aware of my movement bears no fruit, and yet I'm really firm and quiet inside. And if I'm very firm and quiet inside, the movement goes right in.
I find that trying to be aware of my movement bears no fruit unless I'm really firm and quiet inside. But if I am firm and quiet inside, it does work. The movements go easily by themselves.
Yes. It's not at all easy, is it, to know what is meant. We mustn't interfere with our movement at all. But the self, the conscious being that inhabits this machine, which is doing all the movement, must simply be a witness, must simply watch quietly. It mustn't be taking the reins or the driving wheel and doing it. Our equipment does it all beautifully. If we're quiet inside and the mind is restful, we've got the most amazing equipment which will do everything that we ask of it, you see. That's what you mean, isn't it? It's all very easy to say, be conscious of your movements. Very hard not to interfere.
Seems to have to start right inside with one state.
Different for everybody, of course. Each person has to find how to start. The object, though, is what Alan said. First of all, to know, and that we know an awful lot. But next, to experience, to learn by experience. And one of the things we learn by experience is that if you're thinking of yourself all the time, you fall flat in your face. Isn't that so, mademoiselle? And thinking of somebody else, trying to do something for somebody else, is a great standby. It's amazing if one has a completely altruistic thought about somebody else who applies to one or is obviously in need, without any hope of gain yourself, that you get told what to do. This Atman inside at once responds and tells you what to do. Even this last week, we got out of 2 impossible situations because we were forced to regard 2 problems affecting other people completely altruistically. It's this cloud of one's selfish, self-centered cloud, which stops us getting the guidance. Well, we've talked an awful lot. Now, what do you think? Would you begin with this paper, and it should do for the 2 new groups as well? There'll be a big meeting next Monday. The number of the bridge will come out later on that week, and then there will be an organizational meeting. But by the time we meet again in a group like this, I hope you will have read this article and will be seeing what I'm driving at. Probably is rather obscure. But now I leave you, I think, to the tender mercies of Claude, Geoffroy, who will show you this closely. I leave your letter about it, which I think would be very valuable for anybody working in metal to see. And here's the Royal College and the mirror image. There's one last thing, I'm so sorry, there's one last thing, and that is that next year is, as you know, the centenary, which Yale University are celebrating, centenary of Ouspensky's birth. And they've got more and more interested in this. There's no difficulty about the exhibition of his writings, which they're giving. What they're in difficulty about is the brochure that they want to be read by everybody and distributed at the time of this exhibition, which will be a year from now. That's the end of September or beginning of October next year. What they want to express in this brochure are 2 things. One is what knowledge belongs to Mr. Ouspensky himself. They're not interested in all the argy-bargy and controversial systems and things which arose later. But what did Mr. Ouspensky discover and teach himself, which could be tied up with current knowledge so that he would be making his contribution to today's knowledge?
Wouldn't that be contained, Dr. Rose, in tertium organum?
Wouldn't that be contained in tertium organum?
No, it's not written down anywhere. It has to be from somebody's understanding of what Mr. Ouspensky was teaching and putting that in such language as people could understand in a university today. Everything that's in print is out. They have it all, you see. What they want to know is the real meaning of his teaching and its relation to today's knowledge. That's the first thing. The second thing, they want to know about his methods. What were his methods of teaching? Now, everybody is saying that we're the only people who can do this. And I think we also have considerable doubts as to whether we can do this. But what I would like is that if anybody feels that there's one corner of Mr. Ouspensky's teaching which they see in relation to today's knowledge as a contribution, they'd let us know. And anybody who can put it into words which Yale University would understand, what methods Mr. Ouspensky used, I'd like very much to know. So will you, especially the people who heard Mr. Ouspensky teach, would you be thinking this over and letting us know about it? It's quite a job.
Very, very much of a job.
Right. So there's plenty to do. Remember yourself every moment and try to remember what Mr. Ouspensky taught.
You've got your email.
Hi, we're tied up. Oh.